Okay, so today is November 11th. We want to continue with the unit title. And what I want you guys to highlight from the biblical integration of this week is the phrase that I have highlighted there. In our damaged world, another tale is being told. The story's central topic is the quest for success and pleasure, despite the reality that none of our money is ours. And this is what we want to see today with the trading between Portugal and the West African empires. And we're going to talk about the three empires and what their trading was like, what they have to offer to other people apart from just tribes in Africa where the trading was happening. What were they trading to international places? Um, so before we go ahead and do that, I want to quickly do an entry ticket with you guys, and we're gonna be using the waterfall. So I'm gonna ask a question. You guys are gonna type your answer, and when I count to three, everybody's gonna send their answer at the same time, right? So that is going to be what we're gonna be doing. My question is, name one Name one of the three aspects that we were talking about last class. We were talking about how the West African cultures have changed, and we talked about three specific areas. Name one of those three. We talked about three different ones, and this is just a review of what we did last class, right? I would like you guys to name one of the three aspects that we talked about last class. One of the three aspects that your assignment is about as well. So go ahead and type it. And when I count to three, you guys are gonna send your answers. Okay? Okay? At the count of three, one, two, three. Send your answers. Okay, I see communication barrier. Very good. That's one of them. The challenge of worship. Very good. The challenge of worship. Communication barrier. What else? I'm looking, everybody's putting the challenge of worship, communication barrier. Communication barrier. Very good. Challenge of worship, communication barrier, communication barrier, communication barrier. Very good. The importance of technology and education. That was the third one. Excellent. Challenge of worship. Good. So last class we were talking about these three things. We talked about the challenge of worship. So we talked about that West African religion at some point just basically, like kind of vanishing away because some Christianity was coming into place. We talked about the communication barrier when the trading happened. We have like this medium person that was used in most cases because when one tribe wanted to talk to some people from other countries or people from other places, they had different languages, and that is where a communication barrier happened. And now we talked about the challenges of technology and education, where people had to advance, technology had to advance, and advancement happens. Even today, we're looking at today. Today you have the iPhone 11, and then boom, when you gather the money to buy the iPhone 11, we have an iPhone 13 coming out, and that is how fast technology is advancing, and that is what was happening back then. And I gave you guys the example of transportation, where people used to carry the stuff from one place to another. They moved to using camels, and then they moved to using caravans. So thank you guys for your responses in the chat. Now, learning activity number two is a comic strip, the creation of a comic strip. What you guys have to do is I want to see at least three frames, so three pictures. In the Google Classroom, I have the little boxes there. It has to be something like that, right? And what you guys are going to be representing is I want one frame to show the arrival of Portugal. So you would have, for example, you could have a dark skin complexion people representing the Africans, and you have these white colored skin people representing the Portuguese, and then they're arriving. You could have that the boats are coming on the coastline, and that is you representing that Portugal is arriving to Africa. Representing, and then you have another frame that it represents the trading with Portugal. So you would have, for example, the Africans and the Portuguese, and then you have, I don't know, gold or um, vegetables, or depending which West African empire, then that would be what you would be showing in your diagram that is being traded. And then see the impacts of Portuguese. And this is what I'm going to be covering at the end of the session. The last thing that we're going to be covering, the impact of the trading. What were things that happened because this trading was happening with Portugal? So I want to see at least, you could do more if you want, but at least three of them, three frames. One frame is going to be showing the arrival of Portugal. The second frame is going to be showing the trading between Portugal and the West African empires. And the third one is going to be showing the impact. And the impacts is what we're going to be talking about today as well. You can do this handmade. You can go ahead and draw the little frames, or you can find an app or a program online and you can do it online if you have access to doing that and if you have the skills to do that. Be creative, guys. If you are drawing it or you're making it online, be creative in representing your diagrams. You can use dialogues if you want. You can add a title to each of the frames. You see how it is that you would want to create your comic strip. And the title, so when you have your three frames at the top of this, you're going to write man's story and God's story. So that is going to be the title of your comic strip. Anybody has any questions?
No, no.
Is the assignment clear to everyone?
Yes.
Yes, it's clear? Okay. Okay, good. Good. Now, trading. What did these empires have to trade? What did they have in their land that was something that they could be trading, right? You can do it digitally if you like. For example, if you take a look at the pictures that I have been including in this week's, all of those are little comic strips that I take from a website that I found. If you guys have access to any of them, you guys can go ahead and do that. Some of them have, like for this one, you can create a free account and then you can add different things. If you want to do it digitally, you can go ahead and do that. If you would like to do it handmade, you can also go ahead and do that. It's all up to you and what it is that you would like to do. Okay. Um, Now, talking about Ghana, and Ghana was the smallest out of the three empires. Ghana originally was one of the richest empires because they had salt and gold. And gold at that time was, even today, you have gold, you were very, very rich. So Ghana traded gold from gold mines, and they had access to these gold mines in the territory where they were inhabited. They had access to these gold mines, and they also had access to salt mines. And what happened in these times is that they would be using their gold and their salt that they had access to, and they would be trading these things so that they could get clothes, they could get weapons, or they could get other manufactured material. And this is what they were trading with Portugal. At that time, Portugal was a little bit more advanced in the aspects of clothing, in the aspects of weaponry, and in other areas of manufactured goods. Portugal was a little bit more advanced. They had these big ships that they used to travel. They had these rifles that they used. And all of these things were new to the West Africans. So when they saw these things and the Portuguese saw, okay, they have gold here and they have salts here, let's trade. We're gonna give you clothing, weapons, and manufactured goods, whatever manufactured material the West Africans thought that would be useful for them. And then they gave the Portuguese gold and they gave the Portuguese salts. And the salts, when we're talking about these salts, salt at that time was very universal and was used for different things. Ghana traders traded gold for salt, but the king of Ghana kept the gold nuggets and only let people of Ghana sell the dust. Now, what does that mean? When people were mining gold, if you guys know how, if you've seen gold mines, it's like a cave. And when you go into these caves, the gold is like the walls of these caves, and you have to be chipping and chipping, and you have to be hammering it so that chunks of the gold can come off. This is what they call the gold nuggets, because when they would chip off, they would have like, it doesn't have a uniform shape, so it would be like weird little shapes of gold chunks that they had. And the Ghana king, anybody remembers who was the Ghana king at that time? Anybody who researched on Ghana? Who was the king that was known for to be Ghana's ruler at that time? No idea, guys. I only saw one person answer no. Does that mean that nobody else knows, or hello? You guys did this last week. Nobody remembers who was. Okay. Last class, let me find the slide. Last class, we talked about this when we talked about Ghana. Not here, sorry. That was one very good Owen. That was one of the rulers. But the ruler of that time was Sonny Ali. Let me put that. King Sonny Ali. King Sonny Ali. I think that's how you spell it. Yeah, okay. King Sonny Ali. He was the ruler at that time, and he was one of the most powerful. And he was one of the most powerful rulers at that time. And why was that? This was because when the mining, when, okay, when the mining would happen, and these chunks of gold would be removed from the cave. There will always be small little chips of gold. So when you guys, if even if in carpentry, if you know how carpentry works, or when you break a rock, there are chunks that fall apart, but there are also small little pieces that fall apart from the rock as well. Well, what would happen is that the king would not trade the chunks of gold. The chunks of gold would stay for him. And all that he would trade would be the like the shish then, the little chips of gold that said afterwards, the gold dust, basically. So, even though this was all that the king wanted them to trade, this was still very valuable because gold is gold. And when the Portuguese would come, the Portuguese would accept the gold dust because it was even easier for them to use. Because back then, the Portugal knew that I could melt down gold and I could melt it and I could form something else. So instead of taking these big chunks of gold, they had this gold dust, which when you heat it, it heats up and melts very faster, and it could easily be formed into something else that they would want. So it benefited the Portuguese in the end. Even though the king didn't want to trade his big chunks of gold, only the gold dust, it was still very good for the Portuguese. So this was the trading that was happening between Ghana and the Portuguese. When we talk about Mali, who was the king of Mali? Anybody? Mansa Musa, very good. Mansa Musa. Mansa Musa was the richest man in history. History. And this was so many years ago, thousands and thousands of years ago. And up to today, Mansa Musa is still the richest man that is recorded in history. So it makes you wonder, how rich was he? What did he have? Well, Mali conquered Ghana. And this happened because of the challenges that we're going to be looking at later on. These challenges had a lot to do with the fall of Ghana. And when this empire crumbled, Mali took advantage. And there was like a civil war that happened, and Mali took over Ghana. So now Ghana officially became part of Mali, and the territory of Mali got bigger. If you guys remember your maps, Ghana is inside of Mali because Ghana was that small little piece at the beginning. When Mali took over, then Mali expanded that portion of land. And then Mansa Musa, the king at that time, he was very, very intelligent. Because apart from knowing he had gold, he had spices, he had ivory, he had slaves, and these slaves manufactured metal, cloth, other goods. Mali also encouraged his people to be farmers because he had so much land. He grew beans, he grew squash, he grew melons, and he grew lemons. And he even showed his people and taught them that they could even trade fresh water. Because at that time, if you guys remember the video that I showed you guys, all of the empires had to be along the river because there was no other water source at that time. So everybody used this river for water, and he had to show them ways how to be farmers. We are going to be farmers, but the water is so far away. So he had slaves that were the same African people, but he had slaves that were in charge of going to get water, irrigating them. And when his slaves were not able to do that, he would be trading with the Portuguese that brought fresh water. Now, when we take a look at Mali and Mansa Musa, Mansa Musa also found different ways of getting money. In last week, there was a video that we saw that talked about where he was collecting taxes and he would charge double taxes. So now he had this territory of Mali. And when the Portuguese or anybody would come into Mali, they had to pay tax. You had to pay a tax to come in. And when they were leaving, they had to pay another tax to leave Mali. It's like when you guys are when you order stuff online, and then these stuff are gonna come from the United States. You have to pay some sort of tax for it to come in, and like a duty. Like when you guys go to where you used to go to Chetumal, and you would bring something at the border, they charge you duty. When you are leaving, you will also pay some kind of duty because you are taking these products out of your country or you're bringing them into somebody else's country. And this was what Mali was doing with Mansa Musa as the ruler. He would say, okay, you are going to come into Mali, you have to pay tax for coming in here. And when you are leaving, you have to pay tax because you are leaving, and you have to pay tax on everything that you're taking out as well. And because the Portuguese would come and trade, if they brought clothes, if they brought weaponry, whatever they brought, they had to pay a tax on those things. And then they were able to sell it. And when they were leaving and they would be taking these fruits and these vegetables and the gold and whatever it is that they would be taking back to Portugal, they had to pay, apart from buying it, they had to pay a tax for taking it out of Mali. Anybody has any questions so far? Questions, guys? Okay. And then now, when we talk about Songhai, Songhai, like the other empires, traded gold and ivory for weapons, clothing, and other manufactures. And now it's very interesting to see that all of these empires were trading for weapons. Weapons was one of the things that they wanted. Now, why is that? If we take a look at African history, weaponry in Africa was like weapons of the Mayas. If you guys know what the weapons of the Mayas were, it's like a spear. They would chip off a rock and tie it to a stick, and that was their weaponry. But when the Portuguese came, the Portuguese had these guns, they had these rifles, and they were amazed when they looked at these weaponry. So they wanted these things because every empire wants to get bigger, wants to get more powerful. And what is a way of doing that? It's by having soldiers and by having these wars and by having these conquering happening. So Songhai now took over Mali after some time when Mali fell apart. And Mali fell apart because of, and I explained this last class, because of several reasons. And it started with Christianity when Mansa Musa died and his sons took over. All of that, all of those little details caused this empire to fall and to crumble. And while this was happening, the king of Songhai now said, this is my chance. Mali is suffering. Mali's empire is at its weak point right now. So I need to take advantage of this opportunity. And that is how the empire of Songhai then took over the empire of Mali, and Songhai became one of the biggest empires that existed of that time. But what is really alarming, I might say, is that even though it was one of the biggest empires, it was the empire that lasted the shortest time. That means that we became powerful so fast, and as fast as we became powerful, that is as fast as this empire crumbled and fell apart. Now, and then Songhai, the trading was basically the same. In Songhai, people would trade gold, they would trade copper, they would trade that. Sorry, that should say slaves. They traded salt and they traded metals. Now, if you guys take a look at these, um, Ghana was very limited to its trading. They traded only gold and salt. When we look at Mali, they traded gold, they traded salt, but they traded other things. And then now we look at Songhai. Songhai traded those things, but also traded other things like metal. And this is because as the empires grew, And as they conquered more land, they had access to more resources. And the more resources that they found, then the more things that they had to be trading. Any questions, guys, before I go into the impacts? Because this is the last thing. And this is what is going to be in your last frame of the comic strip. One of these three things. Okay, good. I see clear. So, the impacts of the trading. If we want, let's think about like the Mayas. When the Mayas were conquered by the Spaniards, or when the Spaniards came to where the Mayas were, that led to a whole lot of things happening. Whole lot of things, and we could list out all the things that happened. And the same thing applies to the West African culture when the Portuguese came. It's the same thing. And there was so many things that happened, but we're gonna look at three of the most important things, or three of the things that impacted their history a lot. And the first one that we're gonna look at is the spread of Christianity. When we look at the spread of Christianity, and I talked about this last class, when we talked about the challenge of worship, the spread of Christianity caused in these empires quite a lot of things, um, even to the point where you had kings of these empires converting their religion and being Christian now. And because they were Christian, following the Portuguese, and they only did this for with one reason. It's not because the West Africans had their religion, they had their whoever they worship. It's not because, okay, the Portuguese came and told me, okay, God is God, Jesus is Jesus, the Holy Spirit is Holy Spirit, the cross is there, the cross represents this, and they convinced the Africans to turn Christianity to believe in God. No, that's not what happened. The kings of these empires were very smart. They thought, if I turn Christian and I start practicing Christianity, more people are gonna come to my empire and I am gonna have more money. I'm gonna be more rich. That was the purpose in which these kings decided to convert to their religion. And then once you had this happening, more people felt comfortable coming to West Africa and coming to Ghana and to Mali and to Songhai to increase the trading that would happen there, because they had this religion in common now. And back then, back in the past, religion was power. If we learn about the Roman Catholic history and the Pope and the power that the Pope had over the people in Europe, it was very powerful. What the Pope said, that was like the law. And now, when they saw that the West Africans were practicing Christianity, were believing in the things that Christians believe, they thought we can go and trade with them because they are now Christians. And this was one of the impacts that happened because of the Portuguese trading. And just like what we saw here with the Mayas on our side of the world, when the Spaniards came, they wanted to convert the Mayas to Christian, and some of the Mayas converted to Christianity because of the same thing. It was an underlying purpose. That was like, it wasn't because the Portuguese were so convincing about God and the Bible, that they made the Africans believe, okay, God is God and God's the only one. No. The Africans did it with an underlying purpose, and that caused several effects to happen afterwards. Okay, let me see. I think I have a wrong slide. Okay, the second one is the expansion of slavery. And the keyword here is expansion, not the beginning of slavery, the expansion of slavery. So when you think about the word expansion, it's like it's already there. We're just gonna make it bigger. What happened now? Mali, Ghana, Songhai already had slaves. They had their own people were slaves. But the difference was that they were my slaves, but they were not mistreated. They were just slaves. They were like the poorest people of the poorest people of the bottom of the chain, and they were the ones that were slaves. But the Africans never mistreated these slaves that they had. So you had these slaves, like for example, here in the background, the king would have his soldiers and so forth, but he would have all of these kings that would be carrying. I don't know if you guys remember when we watched the video on the empires that talked about Mansa Musa, where Mansa Musa would take all of his riches with him. That was the purpose of his slaves. The slaves were there to do what he said. And he had these slaves, but these slaves were never mistreated. Now, what happened when the Portuguese came and the Portuguese saw that they were slaves? They were saying, okay, this might be even cheaper for me. Because, of course, Portuguese had slaves, but it wasn't like slaves, it was like servants to some extent. They had servants, they did not have slaves. And they were thinking, I can take these people and make them my slaves. So I don't have to pay servants. I don't have to be maintaining servants. To some extent, it would be cheaper for them. So when the Africans saw that the Portuguese were buying their slaves, the Africans thought, oh, this is a way for me to get money. So the same Africans decided to capture their own people. And they were doing this in the same area where they were. So we talk about Mali, talk about Ghana, and we talk about Songhai. The king would order his soldiers to go to small villages or to small tribes and to capture people and bring these people to where he was so that they could be sold to the Portuguese. And this was what was happening here. So all the weapons that they had bought, all of these things now were being placed into use to capture their own people so that their own people could be sold. But what they did not know is that when they sold their own people, they did not know that they were going to be mistreated. Didn't know that they were going to be beaten, to be tortured, to be starved, to be all of these things. Because when Mali, Songhai, and Ghana, they had their slaves, but their slaves were treated as regular people. They just had to do their jobs. When they were sold to the Portuguese, and the Portuguese thought, you are my slave, I am better than you, you do what I say, and if you do not do what I say, you face the consequences. And that was what was happening now. And this is the slavery that we all know about. This is the one that happened that caused and led the way to the transatlantic slavery that we know of, that brought these slaves. So when Portugal started to buy these slaves, other people found out about it, and that is how the Americas got to know about this slavery and started to bring these slaves over to the other side of the world into the Americas. Anybody has any questions? Questions, guys? Okay. And then the last one, talking about conflicts between African states. The conflicts. What were these conflicts? These conflicts were what we call the civil wars. If you guys know what are civil wars, it's like wars between the same state, the same country, the same people. When the slavery started to happen, at first, they didn't know that, the slaves that we are selling were being tortured, or that the king sent to raid villages to get slaves to sell. When the other parts of the state, other parts of the empire started to find out that this was what was happening, they were raiding villages and they were selling these people to get money, and then these people were being tortured. This is where the root of these conflicts arose from. And you would have the soldiers, of course, fighting against the people because the people were angry that they were selling them their own people, the same people that are the same as the king, the same as the soldiers, were being sold and then were being tortured. And that led to several battles. And this was in part a reason why Songhai, the biggest empire, the most powerful empire, was collapsed very fast because of several conflict that happened within Songhai, where the king was getting greedy, wanted more money, trying to sell slaves, trying to sell people, and this war between them started to break out constantly, where the people were fighting the soldiers, and so many people were dying, and so many people were being captured during these civil wars and still being sold as slaves. And all of this led to the empire just falling apart. And anybody has any questions? Do I need to repeat something that I explained for this lesson? Sure. It's clear. You guys have to tell me no, miss. Explain again, miss. Miss, please repeat what you said, miss. I feel like I'm talking. I don't think that I explained the Belizean studies so perfectly that nobody has any questions. But either way, if you guys if you guys run up or to any clarification that you need, feel free to message me. Can I explain the activity part? Very good. Okay, let me do that right now. The activity part. Let's find that slide. Where is it? Okay, over here. The activity part. What I want you guys to do, you are gonna create a comic strip. A comic strip is like you have your paper and your paper has little boxes. I don't know if you guys have seen a comic book. When you guys have you seen when the Marvel movie starts? Like when you watch Spider-Man or Iron Man or Captain America, it starts with these little boxes that have pictures of people and the dialogue. That is a comic strip. That is what I want you guys to do. A comic strip. But your comic strip is gonna be very short. I want 3 frames. You want to do more, you have the time to do more. Please, because today is Thursday, tomorrow is Friday. All of your assignments are due tomorrow. So don't go and kill yourself and do a whole comic book because that's not what I'm asking you guys to do. 3 frames. One frame, one little box, your drawing in that box or your picture in that box has to represent the arrival of Portugal. How did it look like? How do you think it looked like when Portugal arrived to Africa? You could draw, you had the Portuguese and you have the Africans. They were there just looking at each other and they had these boxes that they brought to trade. You could have the Africans on land and then you have these boats coming. That is you representing how the arrival of Portugal. Use your creativity on how it is that you want to show that. The second little box. The second little box, I want you guys to show me the trading between Portugal. And you could use Ghana, Mali, Songhai, whichever one you want to use. If you choose Songhai and you put a metal something there, the Portuguese have clothes and they're trading. That is what they're going to be trading. You show that where you have the Portuguese and the Africans and they are trading goods. And then the last little slide, the last little frame, you guys are gonna put the impacts. I have impacts, only one impact. The impact of the Portuguese trading. And I explained 3 of them. Choose only one to show. you can show that Christianity. So you show that the Africans were believing in Christianity and following Christianity. You could show that slavery, where they were selling slaves and they captured the slaves. You could show that, or you could show what was the last one? I already forgot. I talked about slavery. Oh, and then this the wars where the conflicts happen, where you could have two of the Africans or the African people fighting, and they're there, and some people are dying. I don't know. You use a creative on how you want to show that. But these are the three things that I would like you to show. You can hand write, you can do it electronically, however it is that you want to use, and be creative. You can add little dialogue boxes, and when you're trading, you can say the African says, "Give me clothes, and I give you metal." I don't know. Use your creativity, all right? And that is what you guys are gonna be doing. At least 3 slides. So 1, 2, 3, one for each one. In English, if you're gonna be doing dialogues, I would say in English. You guys don't know Portuguese and you don't know African, so it has to be in English. If you guys want to be even more creative and Google some African words and use your African words, and you guys can go ahead and do that. It depends on what you guys want to do and how much time you have to do it, right? Questions, 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 questions. No questions? Okay, very good. Okay. I do have, guys, an exit slip in Google Classroom. I would like you guys to do it sometime today or sometime tomorrow, um, because I know that's already time. We have 1 minute. 1 minute will not be enough for us to do this activity. So the exit slip is there. I would appreciate take your time. You answer the exit slip and then you submit it because I have it posted as an assignment and I made a copy for each one of you. What you guys have to do is you're gonna put 15 words. It could be any 15 words that we talked about this week and words that you think are important. So, for example, you can put Ghana, Mali, Songhai, you can put challenge, you can put worship, you can put slavery, you can put Portugal, you can put trading, you can put gold, any 15 words that come to your mind that we talked about this week. Everybody understands what you're doing for the exit slip? I will be okay, the exit slip. Let me see if I can open it quickly so you guys can see the exit ticket. This is the exit ticket, right? It's get the gist. I have 15 little boxes here. And what you guys are going to be doing is that you can either add a text box or you can add a sticky note and then you type 15 words. One word for each box. And you put 15 words that we talked about this week. Like, for example, trading, Ghana, Mali, Songhai, slaves, Portugal, Christianity, gold, um, so civil wars, challenge, worship, technology, education. 15 words, right? Any 15 words that um, and then you guys use your 15 words, right? I'm gonna cut that part from the video before I post it so somebody writes it. Can we put words? Yes, it's words. You put words, 15 words over here, and one word for each box. It can be two words for each box. It depends what it is that you want to share. But there you go. That is what you have to do for the exit ticket. Yes? Yes, guys, clear?
Yes, miss.
Okay.
Yes, yes.
Okay, guys, I took 2 minutes of your time. I'm sorry for that. You guys are free to leave. Have a great rest of day. Enjoy your weekend. Do your assignments.